Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, what a scary confession that I received from one of our brothers. The message reads like this. Hello, Brother Nashi, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? As for my mom, she came to South Africa like a very long time ago. When she came here to South Africa, she then got married to this South African man. Then she had kids with her South African husband. Then we also came here to South Africa, me and my siblings. And when I am here in South Africa, I am legally here in South Africa. So what happened, Brother Nashi, is that when I was here in South Africa, I then started going around trying to get a job. I am someone who went to university. I have degrees and I have experience. But what will surprise me is that each and every time after I would have been told that I should come for an interview, when a certain company would have shortlisted me, there was always drama that will always happen. Let's say if I would leave my CVs, and when I'll get an SMS and when I'll be told that on such a date I should come for the interview, but when I would go on the taxi, Brother Nashi, it's either the taxi driver will create so much drama or you would try to run away from the traffic police until his taxi will be impounded. This thing kept on happening and I saw that indeed I had bad luck. There was even one time when I successfully reached the place where I was supposed to have an interview in time, like I had never done this before. When I got into the interview room, then the guy who was busy with the interview, he then looked at all of my certificates and my CV. He then pushed the certificates and the CVs back to me and he said, I am really sorry, my brother, but we can't hire you. So I said, why can't you hire me? He then said, no, we cannot continue with this interview because you have too much experience. I said, is it a bad thing to have too much experience? And he said, yes, we cannot hire you. It is far much better to hire these guys that do not have experience. I was really hurt. I went on my knees and I begged that guy for the job, but he said, no, your experience, it is just too much. We cannot pay you because of your experience. That is how I lost that job. When I returned back home and when I looked at my wife, I said, what am I going to do? That was when I thought of returning back to Zim. I returned back to Zim. Little did I know that my wife, she was going to cheat on me. So I started submitting my CVs at different mining companies. So there was this other mine where I had gone and submitted my CV. They had promised me a job because they said, since we have this South African documents, so it is going to be easy. You can be working between South Africa and Zim. So they told me that I should come for an interview, but they wanted to hire me. Brother Nashi, I then called my wife because on that day I had gone on my fasting. I was someone who used to pray a lot, believe you me, Brother Nashi. But when I found out that my wife was cheating on me, I could not pray anymore. On that day, when I found out that my wife was cheating on me throughout the day, I had been fasting. So when I returned back home, I sacrificed. I took the last money that I had in my pockets and I wanted to call my wife who was back in South Africa because I wanted to tell her to help me out with the fasting and praying so that I can get this nice job at that mine. But when I called my wife, she could not respond. That was when I thought of sending her a text message. And I thank God that when I texted her, I then texted her using English. So this South African guy that she was with, when the guy looked at the message, then understood that this woman was a married woman. But what he did, Brother Nashi, it was just cruel because he kept on making love to my wife. The next time around when I called, he answered the call and he just placed the call on loudspeaker so that I can hear them with their love making. For my wife, she was making those sounds, the morning sounds, and it was really painful. When I found out that my wife was cheating on me, that was when I went to this other traditional traditional healer. I spoke with that traditional healer because I was in so much pain. This healer then asked me how I wanted to fix my wife. I said anything, even cancer, it is okay. Then that traditional healer said, okay, he was going to give her cancer as well as some fibroids. He was going to insert some fibroids in her womb. This is what I did. I did that, go back to sender, and I returned back to South Africa. When I returned back to South Africa, my wife then started to suffer from those fibroids. These fibroids, sometimes they will grow inside her womb. Some of them will grow outside of her womb. There was even one fibroid that was very long. It had its roots that were inside the womb, but it was sticking out of the womb, and she was always in pain. When she went for the operation, unfortunately, she then passed away. When she passed away, I was on my way going for that interview at that other company that I had once applied for. So the company had told me to come for a job interview, but they said it was only for formalities. I had already gotten the job. So when my mom told me that my wife was not okay, I then switched off my phone because I didn't want anything to do with her. I know that it was going to be a very long process for her body to be repatriated back to Zim. So I just stayed away. I enjoyed my time and I got the job. And when I switched on my phone, that was when I heard that her body had already been taken to Zim and she had been buried. My mom was really angry at me, and she was like, even though she cheated on you, even though you are no longer together, but you were supposed to pay your last respects because she is a woman who gave birth to your kids. At least you were supposed to be there at her funeral. Little did I know that this thing that I had done, I had actually angered her own spirit. And at that time, the thought of me speaking again with that traditional healer, because this healer, what he wanted me to do was that he wanted me to return back to Zim, and I was supposed to go on my late wife's grave and take some soil so that her spirit cannot haunt me. But this traditional healer, all this time, he was trying to get hold of me, but the phone was not going through. I don't know what was going on there. I continued with my life. I then started dating this other beautiful South African woman, and we were actually planning to get married. That was when I started to see the ghost of my late wife. When I saw the ghost of my late wife, I thought it was a hallucination. It then happened that on this other romantic night, me and my South African girlfriend, we were busy making love. I was on top of her. So when I looked at her, Brother Nashi, for a few seconds, her face was transformed, and I then saw that her face was transformed and she had the face of my late wife. I got so scared. That was when I contacted that traditional healer, who was more than happy. He said, I have been looking for you, but your phone was not going through. You need to return back to Zim like now. This is an emergency. Treat it as an emergency. So I got on the next flight that was going to Zim. When I landed in Zim, I then went to that traditional healer's place. When I went there, I spoke with the traditional healer. The healer then said that her spirit has been The traditional healer then told me that the spirit of my late wife had been troubling him each and every time he would find himself fighting with the spirit of my late wife. I then asked him, what was I supposed to do? He then said, you need to have a tokology that is going to strengthen you. Otherwise, her spirit is going to fight against you and you're going to die as a poor man, because in her grave, she is asking you, where were you when she was being buried? She is angry. You need to appease her spirit, or you need to have a tokology. So I chose to have a tokology. I then asked this traditional healer, what is it that I was supposed to do? So the traditional healer then told me that I had to go and buy a belt. When I was about to leave the traditional healer's consulting room, I just stood at the door, because when I looked at this other mountain that was close to that traditional healer's compound, I then saw that on top of the mountain, there was a whirlwind that was coming down. I ran back indoors and I was screaming because I was scared. I then ran back inside and I went and I hid myself behind this powerful traditional healer. He asked me what was wrong as he was looking for his hunting spear. We then went to the door and he saw that indeed there was a whirlwind that was on top of the mountain, but now this whirlwind, it was going down the mountain and it was headed for his compound. The traditional healer then looked amongst some of his sick clients. There was one who was a madman. We went to that place and he then gave that madman some money, and then they removed that madman's belt and they gave the belt to me. We then rushed back indoors, but when we rushed back in, but as we were rushing back indoors, this traditional healer, he had his spear pointing towards that mountain. Then in that mountain there was a big explosion. He then started to laugh and he said that he was too powerful for my wife's spirit, even though she had turned herself into a vengeful spirit, but he was much more powerful than she was. We went back into the consultation room and I was told that upon my return in South Africa, I had to wear this belt, and after I would have worn this belt, I was supposed to sleep with a woman. I said, that is very easy because I already have my South African girlfriend. But the traditional healer said, no, I want you to sleep with a mad woman before you go and sleep with your South African girlfriend. So when I came back to South Africa, I traveled around Johannesburg, Brother Nashi, late at night with that belt around my waist. I then found this other woman who was mentally ill. I went to the place where she was at and I slept with her, Brother Nashi, and I do not feel proud about the thing that I did. That traditional healer had told me that after sleeping with this mad woman, I was not supposed to wipe my private parts and I was not supposed to bath myself. I had to go back to my South African girlfriend and I had to make love to her, as dirty as I was. When I pulled out of that mad woman, I saw that there was discharge that was all over my manhood, as well as my own sperm that I had ejaculated into her. It was all over my manhood. I just wore my trousers and my belt, and I then returned back to my South African girlfriend and we made love. But this is the first woman that I infected. At that time, I didn't know that any woman that I was now going to be sleeping with without using any protection, this woman, she was going to suffer from fibroids. That traditional healer then told me that he had inserted the seed, this seed that causes the fibroids, in my manhood. So any woman that I sleep with, I will then insert that seed that causes the fibroids in her womb. At the time when I'll be ejaculating, this is what I'll be doing. When I sleep with a woman, when she starts to have these fibroids, they cannot be cured, because when she goes for an operation, then when the doctors will cut the fibroid that would have grown out of her womb, then the fibroid will shift the position until her womb will be removed. This is what I do, Brother Nash, and I do not feel proud about the things that I am doing. Dear listeners, right there was a message that I received. It was sent to me by one of our brothers, and that was the narration of that message. He then said that I feel so much sadness because my sister, she has her own daughter who is here in South Africa. This young girl, she is less than 18, but this dear brother of ours, he is saying that his charms, they wake him up at night in the spirit. He then finds himself going to his sister's daughter's room. Then he will make love to his sister's daughter. This girl will never be able to give birth because already at her age, she has fibroids in her womb that are growing in her womb. Strange things do happen.